All right. Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Yeah? Okay. Sorry for the last minute delay. We had some devotions that ran over. I'm so excited to see so many people here. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, so in case you don't know where you're at a panel discussion for climate action, a big, broad topic that's going to cover the governance and institutions and the challenges that come with climate change, solution design thinking, and the systemic structures that are impacting the 8.7 million species and us on this earth. My name is Shakil Karim. A lot of people know me as Shaq. Some of you might know why. And if you don't, come find me and I will explain it to you. With us today, I have Maya and Rodrigo. Joining us from YMCA Ireland and the YMCA in Peru. Also with us today, we have Mags from the Philippines. Hi, Mags. So this is a hybrid panel. Mags is our co-moderator. Her and I are doing this together. I'm not sure if we can put her sound on so she can say hi. Hi, Mags. How are you?
Hi, Shaq. I'm good. It's great to be seeing you guys there. Hello, everyone. My name is Magda Gana, but you can call me Mags. I'm from Makati, YMCA, Philippines. And I will be introducing to you our panelists here with me online. So let me call them one by one, and they can say hi to the audience and say something about what they're doing. So let me start with James Gom. He's the Director of Equity Action, World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Hi, James.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be with you. Hope you're all well.
Thank you, James. So let me call on Miss Angela Consuelo S. Ibay. She is the head of Climate and Energy from Worldwide Fund, WWF Philippines. Hi, Miss Gia.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Gia Ibay. I head the Climate and Energy Program of WWF Philippines, and I also hold the National Director role for Earth Hour Philippines. Pleasure to meet everyone.
Thanks, Miss Gia. And last of the panelists, but definitely not the least, Narupacha Muang-In. He's the Director of Social Development and Environmental Conservation of YMCA for Northern Development in Thailand. From Chiangmai, Narupacha.
Thank you, Max. Hi, everybody. I'm Narupacha. I'm work for Chiangmai YMCA. And normally, I take in charge on the environmental and climate change education program and work with different sectors, especially for the schools, communities, and also for the local government. So I also have a network with the YMCAs in Asia and Pacific Alliance. So my pleasure to be with all of you tonight.
Thank you so much, Picha. Back to you, Shaq.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us online. So just to kind of go over maybe the structure of hybrid event, me and Mags are going to have a bit of a discussion, and then we're going to hear from Alex, and then just some housekeeping items too. We don't have to clap after everyone speaks. Whenever you feel it's appropriate, definitely throw an applause. And then we have 4 exits. So if you need to leave, please leave through the back top 2 where it says "ooh," that means exit. And then if there's an emergency for whatever reason, for the bottom half of the section, 2 exits on this side, okay? Mags, the last time I saw you, I think it was 3 a.m. in Scotland, and we were on the streets from a fire alarm in our hotel.
I remember that, exactly. That was freezing cold, in Stirling.
Yeah,
we woke up it's a false alarm.
False alarm and our PJs on the streets last time we saw each other. So it's so great to see you here. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, but I'm happy to be sharing this space with you guys, and I'm happy that Maya and Rodrigo is there.
And speaking of Maya and Rodrigo, I'd like to give it to them. And let's start with Maya. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Oh, I can hear myself. That's so weird. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya. I use she, her pronouns. I am from Ireland, from way down in the southwest. It's called Maidenhead, and it's kind of one of the last points before you reach America. I've been involved with the YMCA for around 7 years. I started off as a kind of a volunteer in one of their digital media advocacy programs, and since then I've helped teach a lot of young people about climate justice, and I'm really involved in, I suppose, quite a couple of things, but now I'm a member of the board as chair of the Global Justice and International Development Advisory Committee. So we do a lot around global youth work, and a big, I suppose, passion of mine is climate justice, because it looks at things through a social justice lens, and as a rural young person, it was something that I cared very, very deeply about. Yeah, I like the YMCA, I like people, I like the climate.
Thank you,
That's
Maya.
it. I accidentally brought a fan club along. I did ask them not to come, but...
We love fan clubs. They're amazing.
I'm not sure.
I have one too, don't worry. All right, Rodrigo.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Rodrigo. I'm all the way here from Peru. Hola, para los que hablan español.
Hola.
And, well, I am a leader in a project in my YMCA. We are, it's called Sumach Muru. It means good seed. And we are turning plastic waste into sanitary infrastructure for people without proper access to water and sanitation. And that's for my volunteering life. And I, in a professional level, I am part of the financial company, and I work in sustainability, corporate sustainability for a pension fund in my country. So I'm very passionate about the environment. That passion took me to COP26 with this, where I met these beautiful persons. Yes. And I am so glad to be here. It humbles me a lot to be here sharing my point of view and shining a voice, I guess, from my heart. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Rodrigo. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a todos ustedes.
Okay, I'll just do a quick little bio about me and who I am, and then we're going to hear from our keynote speaker, and I'll give it back to you, Mags, okay? All right. So my name is Shakil. Shaq is my common name I go by. I am originally from the YMCA of San Francisco. That's where my... Thank you, my fan club. That's where my journey started, and I used to work in childcare to operations, and many of you have the same experience. If a job existed, I probably have done it in the YMCA. And then that passion of working with people and servicing people led me to want to pursue academic research and something called social political demography. So I'm now based in London doing that. I had the great opportunity with these two and Mags to go to the United Nations COP26 conference last fall, which is an amazing opportunity that we got to see how the global governance platform and how the YMCA is a part of that work together to kind of create some kind of solution or design thinking. So we are going to talk a little bit about that today, but without further ado, I'll give it over to Mags, who can introduce our keynote.
Thank you so much, Shaq. Welcome to this engagement panel on climate action. This panel will examine our global YMCA aspirations and commitment to carbon neutrality, and question the changes we are willing to make, both as YMCAs and individually, to implement and support climate action. We have a very interesting topic to talk about this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening. So without further ado, allow me to introduce to you our keynote speaker. He is the Director of Climate Action and member of the Extended Leadership Group, World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Friends, let us welcome Alexander Nick.
Thank you very much, Max. A warm welcome to all of you, to those who are in Denmark. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you today in Denmark and across the world. I'm with the World Business Council of Sustainable Development. I'm now around 20 years working on corporate sustainability. So for me, the question really came up while I was a student. And I had for a lot of time the question on the why. So why am I here being able to study, being in a way privileged? And what do I want to do, having studied industrial engineering? So I got into sustainability, into climate action. And this is what I'm doing until now. And I would now like to take over the next 15 minutes the opportunity to share the perspective of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. So we are an organization, a member organization for multinational companies. So there are around 200 member companies that we work with across different sustainability topics. And here's a deep dive on climate action.
Nick, sorry to cut you, but can you move a little bit in the middle so people could see you? There
So, yeah,
you
that's
go.
good, Max. So you
Yeah,
couldn't see
we
me.
can
I'm
see you
very
now.
sorry. So does it work now? Can you see myself as well as the screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you so much.
So I was traveling through France 2 weeks ago, and probably there are some YMCA folks who live in France or across Europe. So one of the latest heat waves we have experienced here in Europe was just 2 weeks back. And on social media, there was this picture of a French television person doing weather forecasts, and it was a kind of educational element. So if you see that screen, so that's the weather forecast for August 2050, and it has been aired back in 2014. So if you look at the temperatures in France, we have seen exactly those temperatures 2 weeks ago, so 28 years prior to 2050. So I found this quite shocking. Obviously, we see it day in, day out, different climate change impacts from flood and droughts and storms and heat waves. So climate change impacts are already here. And if you look at the time that is remaining, it is shocking. So we only have 7-8 years to halve emissions in this decade to keep us on the track of 1.5 degrees Celsius, which means that we want to limit, obviously, overall increase of temperature by 1.5 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels. Everything that we have done so far from the Paris Climate Agreement is great progress. And I think it is really to applaud that we got there. But now we need to move from commitments to actions. And our WBCSD vision for 2050 is that 9 billion people are living well within planetary boundaries. So we fight for stabilizing global warming at plus 1.5 degrees. We want to see that natural systems are protected, restored, and managed sustainably, and that we have sufficient adaptive capacity. So it's about adaptation and resilience, as well as on really mitigating global greenhouse gas emissions. On the other side, and my colleague James, who have already been introduced, so he's leading our work on equity, so he will probably likely dive more also into the equity piece that you can see also here on the left side. Living well within planetary boundaries. That's what made me also join WBCSD after having been in a corporation for the last decade. And talking about companies, so that's a perspective to share as part of this keynote. It's already obviously today that there are opportunities as well as risks around climate change. And companies need to see them, need to find them, need to address them. So if you look at how sustainability investment as has been shared before, like one of the co-panelists, like working in a pension fund really for sustainability and looking at this very closely. So there's significant near-term value at stake. We see, and this is a good development, that we need bolder environment regulation. And if we get there, and if we're there, it's on a regional level, we really can see that issues like carbon pricing will come into play and will put corporate profits also at risk. The investor expectations also means like having a more strong sustainability focus that they will get in their valuation uplifts. We already also see shifting customer expectations. So there's definitely a willingness for price premium on sustainably produced products and services. We also see many talents moving to more sustainable companies. So this is part of, you can choose today if you are going into the world of work, of seeing, look, what are really companies that have strong focus on environmental, social, and governance issues? And last but not least, we see it from companies such as Unilever that there's a lot of value to capture for first movers. So this is some of the positive notions where we would like to see that companies are taking more action, because there's a lot to gain, or also a lot to risk. There are quite many positive changes already out there today. So we see that multinational corporations are setting net zero targets. They are blending climate into corporate strategy. So we are moved far from the last decade to now in terms of maturity, in terms of carbon disclosure, transparency. How do you account for climate? So we have seen financial accounting systems, they took more than 100 years to get where they are. So we just don't have time for carbon disclosure, carbon accounting. So this has rapidly moved over the last decade, and it is still continuing to get more major. We see increased investments in green technologies, in renewable energy, and in circular economy solutions. So there's a lot that is already happening. However, it is by far sufficient. So you might have seen, as part of the latest IPCC report that came out, the UN Secretary General put it really clear. So he had a statement, I think just 1.5 minutes, and he made it clear of saying we are still on a fast track to climate disaster. So we need to get much more into action. And for me, and it's a call for you as the YMCA, it is time for a mindset shift. And I strongly believe you can co-lead this mindset shift. You're all over the world. So you are collecting, you're gathering the youth. And this is so much needed. From a business perspective, we strongly believe at WBCSD there are 3 radical mindset shifts that needs to happen. And these will make the difference between incremental changes and a real accelerated transformation. And they are all around reinventing the business, the capitalism, the role that enterprises are playing today, incorporating environmental as well as social aspects into the DNA of what a company stands for. It is secondly a lot about resilience. So there needs to be an enhanced capacity to anticipate, to embrace, and to adapt to the changes. So if you look at the longevity of companies these days, so you see that they are really reduced. So the lifespan is diminishing more and more because so much turbulence that we are seeing. So companies, they want to be resilient. They need to show much more resilience, not always looking for short-term profits, but really having a sound business model. And this sound business model needs to be, I'm strongly convinced, one that is really based on a regenerative economy. So companies need to do much more beyond doing no harm. So it's really the inclusion of all 3 dimensions of ecology, social, as well as economic activity, capacity to really regenerate, to thrive, and to evolve over the long term. That means going forward and also seeing to give some perspective where I have heard that you are working on a Vision 2030, how you position yourself at YMCA going forward. There are 2 dimensions for me that are so critical. So I think we are all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, that have been negotiated after long processes and disclosed also back in 2015, the same year as the Paris Climate Agreement. So this is a great framework that we really need to materialize and to focus on. Secondly, I don't know if you have seen that one, and I really encourage you to explore. There's a website link I put in here, the inner development goals. So what are the transformational skills that are needed for sustainable development? And you can see the headlines here. So you can see how much that might resonate with you. Not sure if everybody can see now what's up there on the screen. It just sorry, it's coming. You can see the screen again. So there are the inner development goals. The first one is around being. So what is the relationship to ourselves? Which is something that is overlooked in today's economy, in today's world way too often, right? Thinking, the second one. Relating, how do we care for each other and for the world? Then it's a lot that we need to advance further on real deep collaboration. So the social skills that we need to develop for ourselves and that we would like to see in others are another important part of the inner development goals. And then the last one is on acting, because at the end of the day, if we don't act, we don't change anything. So driving change. A few thoughts from myself on what can YMCA do on climate action. So as you are also running hotels and gyms, so you also operate in some countries as businesses. So how far are you already measuring your carbon footprint? Do you know what your carbon emissions are? Do you know it on the local level in your local business? Do you know it on a national level? And do you also have a kind of inventory of greenhouse gas emissions on the global YMCA level? Because I think this is critical to change anything, so to know where you start from. Because then you can set your own climate targets as YMCA and walking the talk that you would like to see from other actors and take actions to reduce your emissions. The second way where you can act on climate action, where I would see this is really resonating strongly, for me at least, is that you as young leaders, that you drive and that you continue to drive collective action at the different scales that you're all operating in, local, national, and global scales. We need this action from you to really move on. So it all need to come together. The young people, the middle-aged, the old ones. So it's really our task for all of us at this time to fight climate change. And the third piece, what you can do is what you're probably, and I'm not that familiar, sadly, with YMCA, is what is the culture that you're nurturing within YMCA? How much does it support individual transformation following the Vision 2030 that you are currently working on that outcome document? So you are the young leaders on climate action. So what does it really mean? So if there are two things I would like you to remember is you really need to show commitment paired together with action on climate. So make your voice being heard, and it will be heard. So we have seen it recently, especially since Fridays for Futures came out there. So it is really, people will listen to you. And the other action or the other point, it is all about mindset change. So if we don't change the way how our systems are working, if we don't change our own behaviors as individual consumers, if you don't change it wherever you're acting or wherever you are collaborating with, from regulators to businesses to non-profit civil society organizations. So we need to remember what is the values that we are caring for, and is it coherent with the actions that we are seeing and the systems that we have been built up. So it might be a strong or too much coming in if we look at just how all our systems are built, but they've been built by us, by individuals. So this is only the only way we can change it if we start again by ourselves and then taking that action into the collective. So mindset change, as well as your collective action will drive the change. So if I look at your vision, it resonates strongly that they all may be one. So could you have a better vision proposal if I understand it correctly? Yes, we are all one. We are sitting in it together here on Mother Earth. So if we really put together the Sustainable Development Goals together with the Development Goals, I really wish all of us to further accelerate climate action now. Thank you very much for having with you today. Thank you very much. Over back to Max.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex. I don't know if you can hear me. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you so much, Alex. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, there you go. Sorry. That was a very insightful presentation. Just a background on that they all may be one. It actually comes from the Bible, John 17:21, as one of the motto of the World YMCA, because we are all one, like what he said. We are we believe as a Christian-based organization as well that we are stewards of God's creation. So that's very in line with our topic now. What you mentioned on about the mindset shift, radical mindset shift is very important. But you gave us very specific 3 points to measure our carbon footprint, to know where we should start from and take actions to reduce our emissions. Second is to drive collective action through our young leaders and amplify it in the local, national, and international level. And lastly is to enable the culture that supports individual transformation. Thank you so much, Alex. Very insightful. Let's give a round of applause to Alex again. And we will be hearing more from our panelists later. Back to you, Shaq.
Thanks, Mags. Yes, thank you, Alex. That was really insightful. I really enjoyed your fine points, and I think that really makes me think about that in that intrinsic value system, that how important your values match the actions and outputs that you produce in your institution, your family, your life. I'd love to hear from Maya or Rodrigo on some reflections, mainly around that idea of of values reflecting the outputs of what you're doing regarding maybe climate sustainability. Any thoughts?
All right, I guess everyone's looking at me, and so what I picked up from the question, I'm sorry, I'm a Spanish speaker, is how do I reflect on the values around climate change?
Yeah, well, I think particularly is that, so we came from this like human basic needs evolution of our bodies regulate eating and sleeping, and we create then anthropological social values. And then that turns into like chosen identity and like cognition. And we then choose like what we value. And in the modern era, that's turned into the businesses we establish, and that becomes a part of our systemic governance, right? So I'm just curious because I think in the terms of climate, and I do apologize because I'm such a broad thinker, and the specificities of climate, is it that, for example, how do your values reflect the actions that you're producing? So if you really care about the environment, are you still mining for oil, mining for rare earth metals to make products that, produce maybe a consequence to the climate? Is that a good example?
Yeah, like I think, and I love that you bring that up, because many times the products and services that we consume have a price ticket, a price level on it, right? But does that price label or ticket reflect the environmental impact of those products and services? The answer so far is no. I was shocked when I went to COP and I found that water was more expensive than Coke, for instance. Why? Like, if water, I mean, in what world is water more expensive than Coke? So if you are looking at it from a perspective of resources, you might as well buy Coke. But Coke is, of course, has a bigger impact on environment than water. So I think that this is what we're discussing right now. If we value on the same level the environmental impacts of what we consume and we produce and what we do and the processes that it goes through, or if it doesn't, right? So we need to start, and there's of course a debate around that, if we need to start reflecting financially the impact of the products and services that we consume.
Yeah, I think the values need to match what you're doing and reflecting. There's this greenwashing, right, that sometimes happens that says, here's a great example. I once went to the store, this is when I was living in the United States, and I bought maybe like recycled or laundry detergent that came in a recycled cardboard box. But then when I opened the box, there was plastic wrap inside. So it kind of defeated the purpose of me not buying plastic, right? And so that's an example that it looks like I'm participating in this green economy, this new revolutionary change. And then it's like, oh, actually, no, I just contribute to the same thing. So thank you so much. I'd love to hear from someone online, Mags, if you'd like to ask a question to one of your panelists.
Thank you so much, Shaq. I think this is related to what Rodrigo was saying earlier. And this time I would like to bring in James from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. James, can you share more about what your group is doing? Because Alex was talking about earlier that enable for us to be able to reach that goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius, we need to cut 90% of what we're actually emitting now. So can you share more about what your group is doing to enjoin, these big companies, organizations to be able to do this, to achieve this goal? James?
Sure, thanks, Mags. Yeah, happy to share a few thoughts. So as Alex mentioned, we both represent the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. So that's a collective of 200 plus forward-thinking companies that have had that aha moment, that realization, the light bulb has gone off, that there is no future for business in a world that cannot stick within the boundaries of the planet. There is no social license for business to continue to exist and to operate in a world in which people are not treated fairly and equitably. So business really has to change to make that world a reality. Business has a key role to play in making that future a reality as well. We've envisioned this world by 2050 where we have 9+ billion people living well, but within planetary boundaries, and that's making that happen is severely difficult because it necessitates us changing the way we've operated for the last 40+ years or so in terms of how business has grown and how the world has changed. So there's real change that needs to happen, and we work with companies across these three different imperatives. So the need for climate action, the need for nature action, and the need for equity action. And these two things are completely intertwined. So it's not just enough for us to reduce our emissions. We also have to stop degrading the natural world, and we have to move to a nature positive world. And we have to do all of that at the same time, making sure that the impacts we're having on people are positive impacts. Because if we're moving towards a net zero world, but when we're ridding the world of hundreds of millions of jobs, and people are having to pay 10 times as much for their fuel, or they can't access the products that they've come accustomed to, then people are not going to accept the change that's happening. And likewise, if we don't tackle climate change, it'll be the most vulnerable people in our societies that will be affected. So great to hear that climate justice is also a topic on the panel today. So those three things have to be tackled in concert, and then we have to bring those things to life for different industries. So it will mean different things for companies in the energy sector. It will mean different things for companies in the products and materials sector, the way we produce food. So there are these different economic systems, and all of them are going to have to change. Business models are going to completely have to change. So it's going to be a disruptive time, but we feel business has a key role to play in that. And we're also advocating strongly that the businesses that are playing a leading role in that transition are recognized, and not just by us, not just by consumers, but also by the financial markets. And that's a key tool to change everything. If we can get to a world where the share price or the cost of capital for companies that are doing well in this area reflects their good performance, then I think we will have done well, because we can leverage this powerful financial system that we've created as a force for driving good practice. So that's really some of the things that we're focusing on and trying to move this agenda forward.
Thank you very much, James, for sharing that. I think, Shaq, if you would allow me, I would like to ask another panelist here. She's from the Worldwide Fund Philippines, and we know about the WWF worldwide and all of the things that it's doing, for climate action. So I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Gia this time to share more about this initiative. Ms. Gia.
Yeah, so hello everyone. So as you know, I work for WWF Philippines, but it's just one of the national offices in this network of WWF. People know us as the Wildlife Fund, but we've actually ventured beyond that. In fact, we just call ourselves WWF, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, because our practice has gone beyond wildlife. We actually have 9 practices that work on from oceans, forests, water, wildlife, of course, is still included, climate and energy, which I head in the country in here in the Philippines. We have work also on finance, which is something that James has said that is critical. These are cross-cutting drivers that's critical for environmental conservation, as well as the protection and in advancing climate action. So we're working in the finance sector, markets, as well as governance, because these all have an impact on the kind of work that we do. And therefore, I think for YMCA, these are things that we should also be looking at. How do we engage governments? How do we get them to actually do the promises that they actually promised in COP26? And then how do we also engage in the same way that the World Business Council has been engaging forward-thinking companies to really, be true to what they say about the green economy. Earlier, you were talking about values. I think for WWF, our own values reflect also what we want to do. We want to have courage in demonstrating that in doing the actions that we need as we also encourage others to do that, but in the same way we want to live the principles that we call. So we try as much as we can within the WWF network to really walk the talk. Shaq was saying greenwashing, we try as much as we can to avoid that and not be part and integral of trying to get people or companies to shift and be part of that transition. But we also have to respect also and honor the voices and the knowledge of people as well as communities who are integral part of the challenge as well as integral part of the solution. And these are the communities that we serve. So we have to also be able to secure their rights as we're moving towards a sustainable future. So this is where collaboration also comes into play, the collaboration between what WWF does with the communities as well as some of the corporates that we've been engaged with before, as well as I think with organizations as YMCA. I do understand that YMCA and WWF in an international sphere does have a partnership, and we're very glad to forward that partnership because we believe that what you're seeking to achieve through also what we want to do by collaborating together, we'll be able to achieve more together for a sustainable future for all. So
Thank you very much, Miss Gia. So you mentioned an important thing on moving from commitment to action, and you mentioned about the COP26, and I think our panelists also in person will have something to say about this. But I'm gonna save for later, Mr. Narupacha. So I'm gonna.
Mike, thanks. It looks like we have a technicality issue here. This is our role in the world of technology. We haven't evolved to the point where we can just beam them in, like Star Trek. I think Mags was asking to hear from one of Maya or Rodrigo, maybe Maya, about your experience at COP26. Still frozen. Okay. I'm gonna guess that the question was gonna be, so we've talked a little bit about values of an organization and then output, and we heard, from 2 external speakers that really are implementing ways to find solutions. I think James really made a good point about supporting the businesses that are succeeding and doing the right things. Taking that, reflecting on COP, we were all there. I mean, do you think that it's a venue where change is happening? Yeah, give us your take.
Me?
Yeah, Maya.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, Maya. Yeah,
Sorry, you're looking at me, but also my glasses are glaring. See, the thing is with COP, I think there's change. Change is happening there, but I don't think it's happening in the places that you would expect. I saw the most change happening outside of the blue zone on the streets with the people marching. There was
maybe we could explain exactly what COP is first.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if everybody knows what COP is. And, yeah.
I can explain what COP is.
Sorry.
No, I did a lot of research into it after attending there. So COP is the UN climate conference. It's where people come together, stakeholders come together to discuss the policies, the strategies. It's the kind of forum for keeping accountability in terms of climate action. Countries send delegations. There's this blue zone where this is where people discuss the policies. They vote on things. They decide what the strategies are going to be. And then the green zone is kind of more of a engagement educational area. When we went, we were all on blue zone passes, so we had access to this place of that supposedly change and action happens. Personally, I think COP26 especially was absolutely horrific. It was exclusionary, it was discriminatory. It's meant to be this arena where, it was meant to be the most inclusive COP ever, and it was so exclusionary. People weren't allowed, observer delegations weren't allowed in to observe anything. People who were most affected, the communities that are at the forefront of climate change, experiencing the worst effects, were not even able to make it. And if they were able to make it, they couldn't even access the rooms that they need to be in. So COP, for me personally, I saw it as just this mess. And honestly, yeah, I learned loads. I learned loads from the people I got to meet over there. The activists were amazing, and it was a place where we could network and get to know one another and kind of come up with ideas for change. But the actual, there's been 26 COPs. That's 26 too many, in my opinion. This should have been, if we have to keep holding them every year, and they go around in circles and circles and circles, but they don't have the people who are at the forefront in those rooms. I think it's extremely naive to think that we can solve any of these problems or put in place any strategies without the people at the forefront of any of these things. Like one of my friends there from Hawaii, Diana, I remember talking to her, and it was incredibly frustrating as an island nation, experiencing huge effects of climate change, but not even able to contribute effectively. It's the same with I know someone from the Marshall Islands, with sea levels rapidly rising, so many of them were not even able to make it to COP. And if they made it, they couldn't contribute. And then we do have the opportunity to feed into things, but there's this youth agreement they had in Rome beforehand. And I was talking to an activist from Kenya, and she said she went over there, she contributed, it was great. It was hardly mentioned. The young people's perspective was virtually non-existent. And it was incredibly frustrating to see that happening, to see that those who were most affected were not even appreciated. The knowledge, the indigenous knowledge. Climate justice and environmental justice started with the people at the forefront. And there's these theories and these strategies that we use, the intersectionality, that came from Black feminism. But it's never recognized in any of these discussions. So I think, in terms of COP, I don't think these discussions around climate change will ever be properly effective without recognizing these things, recognizing the social implications. We focus so much on the scientific facts and figures, but we don't look at the people who are directly being affected, whose homes are being washed away, the biodiversity is being destroyed. Yeah, you can tell I'm a little angry.
Yeah. I feel the emotion. No, I feel it. Yeah. I think... Thank you, Maya. And I know, Rodrigo, I know you have something to contribute on this real quick. I think, too, just for more context, which we've heard, the other night, is that there are so many nations and peoples that are just excluded from the bureaucratic access to travel. And of course, this was months ago when the pandemic was we still are in the pandemic, but the rules are a little bit different then. And so I think that added to the layer of exclusion, and may I say, it felt a little oppressive at moments. I'm not excusing the COP conference at all.
Oh no, but it's the same. It's a reoccurring issue as well. We can see how many people were affected with visa access trying to reach World Council here.
Yes.
Some of those communities that we really need to, this is a collaborative learning environment. It's so hard to learn if they're not in the room, and that's personally unfair, in my opinion.
It's,
Yeah.
and I definitely agree with you. Rodrigo, do you have an alternative thought, or?
No, I actually, well, listening to Maya, I think she pretty much said everything, but I wanted to add on a comment we were discussing earlier. I think the biggest, I don't want to say strength, but the biggest ambition of COP turned its biggest weakness as well. So trying to gather the whole world and on the same page, at first looked like, okay, let's build agreement, but then it became like such a challenge that the little agreements that are made are insufficient. I mean, the lack of urgency that one feels when it's in there, and the despair and desperation that people feels outside the blue zone, it kind of tells you the story of we are struggling and you're not listening, and you're focusing on a draft and getting everybody on board. So that's sort of what I believe it's happening in there.
I'd love to hear from some of our online panelists in just a moment. So just to recap, I think the point I'm taking here is it's just our governments and our bureaucracies that we've built thus far are disappointing us. Do you think, and I'd love to hear maybe from someone on online, Mags, if you could help us out here, I'd love to know, do you think this is an area the private sector and NGOs domains can lead in? Is this something that they can pull us out of or contribute the most effective solutions? Mags, or maybe James, I'd love to, yeah, I just would love to hear from someone on your panel. Maybe.
Yeah, you can call James.
Sure. No, I think it's a really good question, and I think so. There was a time as well when business wasn't going to COP. I mean, it was just a government discussion, and maybe a few like forward-thinking businesses that were there. Business was there in the thousands last year. So really waking up and positioning solutions to lots of issues and bringing that business voice, saying what does the business community need in terms of enabling policies and enabling legislative environments to help to accelerate some of the solutions that are starting to emerge on the business side. So businesses, I think, is really engaging strongly, but I really take that point that there needs to be more integration of different viewpoints at COP. And we need to look beyond COP as well, right? Because COP happens for a hectic couple of weeks. And during that time, the media is full of positive stories and how the negotiations are going, and climate is front and center. And then everybody forgets about it again. And then we go back to really, riling against any climate protesters whenever they appear on other talk shows and things in the UK, I've seen at least, where it's sort of climate protesters are almost vilified for standing up and taking action. So there needs to be a consistent placing of these issues at the forefront of people's thinking. I think the media has a big role to play there as well. Business certainly has a role to play there as well. But also, individuals' actions are so important in this space. It may seem like it's a big sort of ethereal conversation that happens with those heads of state, but people, individual voices are getting louder and louder in this space. So consumers, in terms of the products they buy, the businesses that they endorse through their custom, they have a huge voice to add to the conversation. People's voting habits, who you're electing into government, who you're electing to go and represent you at events like COP is critically important. So making sure that any person you're voting for has climate front and center of their agenda, because it's the critical challenge that awaits us over the next coming decades. So I think COP definitely has its failings, and I think there's a lot for it to do for it to be improved. But I think bringing the power of some of the conversations that we saw at COP more into the mainstream and more into our day-to-day interactions is a really critical way forward.
Awesome, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, sorry.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Mags, and thank you everybody for bearing with
Shaq.
us. No, it's okay. Thanks for bearing with us in this hybrid event. You're seeing true authenticity. I'd love to hear from Narupacha, Mags. I think Narupacha has some success stories with his YMCA, correct?
Yes, thank you, Shaq and Max. Thank you again, everybody. So from Chiangmai YMCA, I would like to express my interest, for our resource person this session, especially for the Alexander. He show us about the information and data is very important, and also from the James and also from guys that you try to explain your work and your idea about how to solve the problem about the climate. For Chiang Mai YMCA, we also because of come back to COP26 that we already talked about. So Chiang Mai YMCA, we also respond, for the COP26. Actually, before COP26, we start to work since, before the COP21 already, that, they do the agreement in Paris some years ago. And, for last year, COP26, they come to review, the commitment again. And I believe that, for the YMCA, as we are the youth organization, we are the organization that, we try to run our activities. And I believe that all of us, we agree with me that, the products of the YMCA is the youth. So it means that if we can, make our products more, smart nowadays. So if they can become like, the persons who be the eco-friendly, I believe that, it's not very difficult to achieve, to reduce the carbon emission in the future. And Chiang Mai YMCA, we also, try to educate for the people, especially for the young people and also for the communities to understand and realize the impacts of the climate change. And also we try to educate to them how to solve this problem by, change their mindset and also take their action to more seriously. For Chiang Mai YMCA, we also work with the Asia and Pacific Alliance of YMCAs. We have the one program that very interesting because of we believe that among of our regions in Asia and Pacific, if we can educate for the young people among the young staff and also for the young youth leader and also for the senior staff to understand about the situation of the climate change, especially in our regions that, in Asia and Pacific, we are the one of, the very serious area or the regions that, get the very negative impact from the climate change. And when we do the educate for the people, for our young people, we organize like a training, for the young people and also for the staff from different YMCA in Asia and Pacific Islands regions to learn about the situation of the climate change, and also we learn how to calculate the carbon emission to set the target for the carbon emission reduction that we plan to do together. And from our work, we can see that now many YMCAs and also many school and communities, they already understand and take action more and more. So I think this is one of our success step for the climate change education. Yes.
Thank you, Picha, for sharing those wonderful programs in Chiang Mai YMCA.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Back
That was
to you,
so good
Shaq.
to hear. And I think just to recap, because some of it was strained for me to hear for our in-person audience, There is a lot of things that YMCAs all over the world are doing, and I don't even know everything of what we're doing. But from the works of, I mean, education is incredibly important, but also building infrastructure on buildings, right? Reducing your consumption of the energy grid, installing more renewable technologies like a solar panel. Those are things that our buildings have contributed to. And also, if we take into consideration the education component and what James was saying earlier about the private sector, you might be more inclined to use your money to support initiatives, companies that are going in the right direction, and you can have a little bit more intention about where your dollar is spent. But there is a global elephant in the room, which is the global north, that is the predominantly Western developed nations, are continuing, we have this cycle of consumption that's so systemic, where we're just exploiting the global south for their resources, and then not allowing them into venues like a United Nations conference to actively contribute change. I'm curious, maybe Rodrigo or Maya, exercising thoughts. What's the YMCA's role in something like this? Something that seems so big beyond the scope of our global community.
All right. So the YMCA's role on climate action, I think, is a major responsibility. I was talking a little earlier about how climate change is not only important, it's urgent. We need to act now. And I believe, even though there are things that are being done in the private sector, from governments, and from the civil society, we still need more. And YMCA can be a platform for change. So, of course, we need to take responsibility for our emissions. That I take it for granted. We should do that. But we also need to give spaces for people, for young people, to create and design solutions. Let me talk a little bit about what we did in Peru, just because it's my experience, right? We started a small group of young people that wanted to do something about climate change. We didn't know what, we just knew we wanted to do something. And we started with circular economy, like we approached to plastic waste, and we thought about possibilities around that. And then all of a sudden came to us the fact that we realized that in Peru, like one of the major issues and vulnerabilities around climate is water, access to water and sanitation. So we said, what can we do about that? And so we came up with Sumach Muru, which is a project we create eco bricks that are made with plastic waste, and on a community level we build them, and we have turned them into a sanitary infrastructure for a school that does not have proper access to water and sanitation. And it is something so important for them, since we want it to be a driver of change and climate education. And with this infrastructure that is already allocated in the school, we want to create and empower young students into environmental citizenship. So I think that is what the YMCA has potential to do and escalate. Like we can have one of those eco bases in every school without access to proper water and sanitation, and we can have their teachers and their parents engaged into a wonderful solution that can work in everywhere. And just as our solution, I believe that there are many other ideas that are out there, and YMCA can be a platform for young people to create solutions and implement them and grow themselves as citizens of this world. Because I think that's what happened to me. I never would have thought that I would be at COP, that I would be here, that I would run a project with funding and making decisions that have an impact on a budget. But then this happened, and then I realized I could do more. So and I'm doing more, right? So the YMCA is about empowering young people. So giving them voices, give them resources, give them the space. We'll make mistakes. That's it, right?
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. I love that. I would like to, hear from you, Maya. You and I are both from countries that are in the global north.
Yeah.
We benefit from the exploitive causes. What's our role in equity here for the YMCA? What's this?
I suppose, we have the benefit, I suppose, the YMCA, of being a global, far-reaching movement. There are so many of us, clearly evident, in this room, and I think especially those with the capacity, many of those in the global north, there is a certain, I suppose, responsibility that we have to support each other, and particularly those in, collaborate and create partnerships with those in countries that are maybe experiencing different challenges. Like, for example, yesterday we got to meet with some of the Colombian YMCA, and that was really good because we were able to have a conversation and learn from each other. But I think it goes further than that. I think that's almost a necessity if you have the capacity to ensure that you're amplifying the voices of those lesser heard in these kind of environments. I think it's kind of a beneficial thing for both to be able to learn, but I do think a really important aspect of any organization is recognizing, I suppose, colonial roots, recognizing entrenched discrimination. One of the things I like so much about the YMCA is that it promotes inclusivity, accessibility. I think it's really important to ensure accountability in that regard. I know for us in YMCA Ireland, we're a big climate justice kind of movement, and that relates to a lot of global youth work. So it's not just about the young people in Ireland. We want to connect with young people across the world. A lot of what we're, I suppose, involved in is digital media and using that to amplify voices. So it's not necessarily our voices we're amplifying. We want to work with other YMCAs predominantly. And I think the thing is, especially I suppose I always come back to climate justice, but a big part of that is accountability and transparency and a just transition. And you can't have a just transition if you're leaving people behind. And I think that's the responsibility of YMCAs, is to ensure that we're bringing people with us, we're not leaving people behind. And there's different ways to do it. There's things like the youth-led solutions, but there's things that YMCAs can do in their own capacity. And a big part of that is listening to the young people. We are a youth organization, so young people kind of have to be the centerfold of this. And we're talking about, the climate action on the streets and things like that. Young people want action, we want change. I think it's about ensuring that we're listening to those young people, not just the ones in our own organizations or our own countries, but also the young people across the world and what they're experiencing. So I suppose it's recognizing that we have a really significant role, recognizing, I suppose, our privilege to a certain extent. You have to challenge that. And I suppose at the end of the day, it's ensuring that it's not tokenistic, that it's not like you pop in and you have a chat with someone, you go, I hear you, I see you, these are really tough times. But you actually listen to what people are saying, actively listen to it, and take on board what they're saying to enact change, but also feeding it back. It can't be like a top-down kind of thing, which you see so often. It has to be collaborative. It has to be community-led. I would advocate for youth-led. But yeah, I suppose.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you.
Please stop.
I think too, just to be a sounding board here, is that the power of relationships, right? The fact that our YMCA can have a global conference such as this one, and I can go meet somebody from a country that I've never visited before. I think, who was I speaking to? Someone I think was from the Gambia the other day. And I just got to learn a little bit more about who they are, where they come from, what their culture and their people and their country is. And I think that has a lot of power too, because I think it removes biases and these elitist barriers where we are, I'm more ignorant because I'm not exposed to as much. And so I think this takes us somewhere.
I think one of the really cool things about, not cool, I don't know, one of the nice things about, I suppose, this conference was that you're able to connect with people from all over the world. So it's like, I know we do these panels and we do, the discussions and stuff, but it's actually kind of more the casual interactions that you have with people. Like a bunch of, I've never met so many like amazing young people, but it's learning about what people are doing in their YMCAs, but also how you can collaborate. I think that's one of the most exciting things about that. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the YMCA is about. It's a global movement. It's not like one YMCA does this and one YMCA does that. It's about how we can work together and bring everyone with us rather than leaving so many behind.
Right. I feel that. So back to our online panelists. Mags, I'd love to hear maybe from Angela, I think a little bit more about the World Wildlife Fund, and maybe what you think of in terms of collaboration with the YMCA. How far does that go for you? What do you think the solution is for that? Or maybe even success stories in your own organization?
Yeah, thank you, Shaq. I feel so. I first saw there's much to be said for individual action. I mean, using now my Earth Hour hat, National Director hat, we always tell people, okay, close the lights for 1 hour. But and we always get the flack of saying, what's 1 hour when, there's a lot of things to be done. But the thing is, collective action, when you do it on a consistent basis, and it's not just like you do it 1 hour for now, but if that mindset that if you're not using that energy and you just turned off, that can actually be able to produce and be able to generate more clean energy in the long run. So I think those things are things that people can be able to do. And I think through YMCA and WWF, there's much we can do to collaborate in many aspects. And then I think that's something we're looking forward to. And maybe here in the Philippines, Mags and I can actually have a conversation separately to see how we can collaborate on some of the projects we have in the country.
Amazing. I love it.
Thank you
Building
so much, Miss
relationships.
Gia.
Thank you, Mags.
Thank you, Shaq.
Thank you, Angela.
So I agree. I kind of agree. I agree with what Miss Gia said. Actually, this was one of the important points that His Excellency Ban Ki-moon mentioned yesterday in his speech on making YMCA as a space for empowering young people for youth-led solutions. Because inclusivity is very important. And joining the young people as part of the decision-making process, and that is what we are amplifying in the YMCA with the recently launched program on the youth-led solutions all over the world. So thank you so much. At this point in time, there might be questions coming from the audience. I would just like to remind those online that you can use the chat box if you have questions, and our question master would give us the queue of the questions. So back to you, Shaq.
Thank you, Bags. All right, same thing. We're closing in on time here, about 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions, we have two ways you can do that in person. One is you can go on the C-Event app and go inside the app, click on this session, and you'll see the little red button that says Ask a Question. We also have microphones as well that are floating around. If you would like to ask a question on a microphone, just go ahead and raise your hand, and our wonderful question moderator, Chris, will come to you and help you out. We have one hand right there. Maybe I can. You have a question online first, and then we'll go to in person? Great, we'll do that.
Okay, so we have one question here from the online audience. And the question is, what practical steps can local YMCAs do to reduce their carbon footprint?
That's a great question.
Great question.
We have an answer.
I think we have a panelist. Yeah, who can answer that.
It's a wonderful question, and I think there's a lot to be said about one, energy efficiency. Look at what you have in whether you have an office or even in your projects. Try to be as energy efficient as you can. Second is waste. And that includes whether it's food waste, it's plastic waste, it's biodegradable waste. Try to reduce and recycle. Those are the classic 3 R's. I think we always take it for granted, but we also have to always remind ourselves that these are things that we can do on a practical basis. And then you can further expand it. Whether you have a project, for example, just for food. Food waste can be reduced, but if you work with restaurants, you can find ways by which maybe the waste that they have, collect it, give it, and compost it, and that can be actually sold to farms wherein you can actually also have urban farms, even in cities. So these are things that can have an add-on effect if you're able to do and expand projects like that. So you just started with something simple, but you can actually make it as a project for YMCA. So those are just some thoughts.
Thank you, Miss Gia. Narupacha has something to add on that. Just a quick one, and then I'll pass on to you, Shaq. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Max. I just want to add here some point. I agree with you that, for local YMCA, when we want to, reduce our carbon footprint, the first thing that we have to think is about the energy consumption and also for the water as well. And if we can reduce our electricity, so it means that we can save a lot, we can reduce a lot of the carbon footprint of our organization, and also for the waste management. If we can practice like a 1A and 3R's concept, avoid what kind of the things that we have to avoid is like the single use, the plastic and styrofoam, for example, and also for the reuse, reduce and recycle. Of course, we know already about that. And I would like to add one thing more is about now in Asia and Pacific Alliance of YMCA, we try to do the campaign to increase the green area by tree planting, because of we know that the tree is the best carbon sink that can help a lot to absorb for the carbon emission and also to produce more oxygen for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Picha. So over to you, Shaq.
Thank you, Mags. All right, so I know we're running on time. We have a question here, I think.
Hello, does this work? Oh, it is. Hi, I'm Luke Van Hallowen. I'm Mike Van Hallowen's son. That's the bald guy here. He, or I rather, had a question, more of a existential question, I guess, but I just wanted to get you guys thinking about it. You guys seem to be very enthusiastic about giving power to the youths, and as a certified youth, I appreciate that very much, and I wholeheartedly support your endeavors. Part of me is wondering, though, why is it up to us?
It shouldn't be. Oh, yeah. Straight up, it just shouldn't be up to us. In my opinion, anyway. I think, I suppose, it's a bit unfair. I think it's really hard as well, because we're growing up in a time where we're extremely aware, we're extremely conscious, we know what's happening, we can see what's happening, and there's that urgency, that fear. I don't really it's just, I think it's unfair. It's the thing, you can't, saying unfair is probably it's not very productive, but, people messed up, quite simply. The way that we've been living is just unsustainable. It's not realistic, and we've been focused on the wrong stuff. We've been so focused on growing and growing and bigger and more, and it's just not productive. And we've been missing the point of that. We've been leaving people behind, and I think young people especially are just so conscious. And the thing I hate the most, and you hear it so often, is oh, young people are the future leaders. You are our future, and then here we are on the ground, storming the streets, pushing for change, being, I suppose, slightly aggressive about things, and slightly brutal about things. I'm always told off for being way too honest. And life's too short to be pretending or I don't know, schmoozing up to people. I don't have the time for that. So I think it's unfair, is my answer, to be honest.
Yeah. I would also add, do we really have any other choice?
Yeah, there is no choice.
But also when we look back at our history as humans, there has always been a few generations that have had to do things that should have never been asked for them, and that's our story of humanity. But this is as far as we've come so far, so this is all new, and it seems so much scarier. Do we have any other questions? I know we're going to run on time soon. We could talk more about this one, but there might be another question that someone really wants to ask. I can't see. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Marcus.
Hi, guys. My name is Dwight Tomlinson. I'm representing Jamaica, and I was also at COP with these lovely young people on the panel. My question was really based around the youth, and through the lens of youth-led solutions, what can we do to mirror or maintain the objectives of the Paris Agreement on climate change?
Wow. Also, what I picked up from the question is, what can we do from youth-led solutions to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement?
I believe so.
Correct? I got that. Yeah, I got that right. That's it. Well, I like that to have someone as ambitious as you are here, because I believe that's the mindset that we need. Like how we get there and how we get beyond that goal, which is quite tough if you think about it. We just heard at the beginning of our presentation, which says we have 80 years to cut our emissions by half. So there's a lot to be done. And being pessimistic, I think we can try to get there. Being optimistic, I think we have the responsibility to get there because we have no choice, even if it's unfair. I loved your comment, by the way. And I'm going to combine right now the two questions because it just reflected on my mind. Like I don't see it like it's up to us, but I'm thinking like we are taking over. Because I'm sorry for the adults in the room, but you have done a terrible work in the last few years. So I think it's now our turn and our responsibility to empower ourselves and build ourselves and our own capacities to take a stand and work to engage with as many people as we have and the biggest network that we can achieve, so we can have more youth-led solutions and tackle these big challenges. So I don't know if that's going to satisfy your question because I don't have a formula. I actually believe that everyone, every young person, every community needs to look at themselves and their own challenges at a local level to address them in a creative, innovative way that I am sure the ideas are over there. We just need to provide the platform, gather people, have the discussion, and then provide the resources to do that to make it happen. And I think that is very, very important. I want to be bold in it. We want young people to tackle the challenge. Let's give them the power, and let's take the power and let's take the resources that we need. That's very important.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is very, very true, and I definitely agree with some aspects of it. I would argue that it needs to be an intergenerational approach to climate action and climate change, only because I suppose an us and them situation is never ideal. I do think young people need to have a much greater role, and I think we need to be given a lot more trust. Because I don't feel like, even though sometimes people say they trust us, it's kind of like a half trust. It's like, we'll give you a little bit of like leeway, but then, we're still there, kind of holding the handbrake. I think it needs to be intergenerational because there's so much we can learn from some communities which have done good work, especially like some communities which typically like indigenous knowledge. I've learned so much from elders. In that capacity, in terms of the connection with the earth, respect, it's our home. And I think that's really valuable, and it's getting lost. And I think that's why we need an intergenerational one.
I agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah. And in terms of gender as well.
Yeah, gender too.
I also want to just add to and this is young people now will become old people in the future. And we are going to be met with the idea, can we give up our platforms and privileges for also young people? It's not easy. But I want to sound on that when an older generation does this, when they are promoting, you're not losing anything. You've just shifted the amount of power you have redirected in this earth. So I think that's a great way to look at it too. So all of us, we had a great time here. You guys were such a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. To our online participants, I will just give you, I guess each of you maybe 12 seconds as a closing thought. Any closing thoughts? No? Mags, you were wonderful.
Yes, he has something to say before we end. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was a wonderful intervention. Maybe just to add that I think that together we are all responsible for this. I mean, whether you're young or old, it might just be a little bit of just in terms of the differences. But we're all responsible, but together we can all deliver on one of the Paris goals, but together everything is possible. We work together to ensure that climate action really goes where it's needed, where it can be done, and where we can actually extend further so that we can make this a sustainable planet or a sustainable future for everyone. So I think this is a very good discussion. Lovely to be part of it. And I look forward to further discussions and possible collaborations with YMCA and WWF. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Miss
round of
Dia.
applause
Can we hear?
for everybody.
Yes. Can
All
we hear
right.
from James?
Thank you, Mags. Thank you, James, Angela, Narupacha. Yeah? Who's going to? Oh, sorry. So sorry. Go ahead.
James, do you have any
No, I
parting
won't
words
take
on
up
the
any more
closing?
time. I'll just,
Sorry, it's just that we're at time, so I'm going to have to call it because I know people are going to need to leave. So, but I wanted to just give, thank you so much, online, in person, trying to make this work, our audience for supporting us through the moments. All right. If anyone in person has any questions, wants to talk to us further, please find us as we're out and about. Maya, myself, Rodrigo, anything to do with the climate and environment. We each have a specialization in it, so you might be surprised.
Bye, Mags.
Bye,
Thank
Mags.
you so
Bye,
much,
Narupacha.
everyone.
Bye, Angela. We miss you. Wish you were here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Regards to everybody.
Awesome.